بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is Fahad from Dawakor coming to you once again, and today we wanted to discuss our second tidbit related to increasing earnings during economic recession. But before I get there, I wanted to talk briefly about the Occupy Wall Street movement. And as you know, this movement has caught a lot of steam, and it's actually spread outside the realm of just New York and has gone to worldwide. They actually had one this morning I was listening to that it actually has gone to Germany and other countries, etc. Now, one of the things that we see, and we see that they have certain complaints. One complaint, for instance, is about the rich and the wealthy and how that they've made enormous amounts of money in the last 30 years, while the poor and impoverished are getting poorer and poorer by the day. And, it's a valid complaint. It's true. I mean, specifically with the United States. The United States is the most polarized country when it comes to income in the world amongst developing countries. And this is a big problem. And so they list these problems. I mean, this is one, the polarization, and then, the idea of the irresponsible nature of the banks, etc. But there is one thing that both when you listen to media on the right and you listen to media on the left, or just kind of across the board, one of the things is that yes, they agree that that the Occupy Wall Street movement and this movement, they have valid complaints. But one of the things that they're lacking is a solution or a proper idea of how to resolve those problems. And one of the thoughts that I had was it would be absolutely wonderful to have Dawakor go to New York, perhaps, and distribute material showing the economic system of Islam. Because you see, in the class, we're going to be talking about the problems of our current day and age, of the current economic recession, and then we'll be talking about what solutions Islam has to offer. And I thought it would be wonderful to be able to take literature that's printed, that's published by Dawakor, and designed, as you've seen some of the Dawa cards, and designed in an attractive fashion, and to be able to go and distribute that to the people there, because it seems like the people there are hungry for something like this. But here's the thing: something like that needs support, and it needs specifically your support. And so, as I mentioned in the last video, that supporting the Dawah, supporting students of knowledge, etc., is a means to increase earnings. But even when it comes to things like the Occupy Wall Street movement, or things that are happening, current events, it's imperative that we're able to capture that opportunity. I mean, even if it's not Dawakor going there, but there are Muslims there, for instance, in New York, and it would be wonderful to be able to provide them with material related specifically to Islam, and specifically to Islam and how that relates to economics. But we can't do that without your support. So if you haven't done so yet, go to www.onestopdawashop.com and donate whatever amount it is. Make sure you're a part of this, and give Dawakor the opportunity to be able to provide material, to be able to forward on the Dawah, and do the job of Dawah. So if you haven't done so, I highly recommend that. It's really interesting when we get to the course, and as you know, these videos are a prelude to the course called Islam and the Economic Recession. Whether you're going to take the full course in Dallas, or you're planning on coming to the conference in Houston, one of the things that we talk about is the genius of Umar ibn Khattab in the realm of public finance. And truly, when you start reading about the way he was able to understand the Sharia and implement the Sharia related specifically to public finance, in other words, how to finance, a contemporary example would be how to finance the fire department, the police department, the education system. Those are what we call public finance. Where do we get the funds to do that? Well, Umar ibn Khattab, when it comes to implementing the Sharia specifically related to public finance, it is amazing. And so presenting something like that to a non-Muslim, and very, being at something like Occupy Wall Street, I mean, it would be something truly amazing. And so, if you haven't done so, again, I highly encourage you, go to the website and donate. We'd love to share that information with non-Muslims, and we'd also, like to be able to take advantage of opportunities as they arise. Okay, now let's go ahead and move on, and let's go to our second tidbit related to increasing earnings during economic recession. And this second tidbit takes us on a journey to the Quran. And specifically, this journey is related to Surah Nuh. And personally, I really love Surah Nuh. The reason is because it talks about dawah, and it talks about the dawah of Nuh alayhi salam. And what's very interesting is that it gives you, you could say, like a methodology of how to give dawah, but also it tells you about the problems that Nuh alayhi salam faced. So, for instance, when you go to the Quran and you go to Surah Nuh, Nuh alayhi salam, Allah Azza wa tells us qala. In other words, that Nuh alayhi salam said, قال يا قوم إني لكم نذير مبين. He said, "Oh my people, I am indeed a clear warner to you." And what's the first thing that he calls them to? أن يعبد الله, to worship Allah. So as a dawah principle, we see that, the idea when we're going and calling people to Islam is to call them to Tawheed. This is the first thing. And of course, as you continue on through the journey, through Surah Nuh, you find the struggle of Nuh alayhi salam. That he would call people in the day, he would call people at night, he would call them publicly, he would call them privately, and they were stubborn. But I'll tell you something. In the realm, which I find fascinating, in the realm of calling youth, be they non-Muslim youth to Islam, or even Muslim youth, to have them come back to being righteous and upright, there's a certain issue that we always find, and this issue is that they tend to want to follow, certain personalities, rock stars, movie stars, and of course, in our society, we're inundated with these things. So you walk through the aisle and you see tabloids. Ashton is getting divorced from Demi, who has Brad and Angela, and you can't help but be inundated with all of this material. And of course, youth are especially susceptible to this idea. And of course, so when it comes to it, the role models are these people. But you see, it's not a new problem. And what's very interesting is that it's not a new, and I say this because that problem is something that Nuh alayhi salam complained to Allah about. You see, Nuh alayhi salam says, and you go to the Quran, it says, قال Nuh, that Nuh alayhi salam said, Rabbi innahum asawni. He said, "Oh my Lord, they disobeyed me. وَاتَّبَعُوا مَنْ لَمْ يَزِدْهُ مَالَهُ وَوَلَدَهُ إِلَّا خَسَارًا." And they followed those people whose wealth and whose children will not increase them in anything except loss. And so, if you think about it, the rock stars, the movie stars, the personalities, the media personalities, they have a tremendous amount of wealth. And it's very attractive to see them. But yet, will that wealth help them on the Day of Judgment? No. As Nuh alayhi salam said, that it will not increase them in anything except loss. And so you find that this problem wasn't something new, but even from the time of Nuh alayhi salam, it was something that he dealt with, and of course something that we have to deal with. Anyhow, the point was, related to this surah, was that embedded in this surah is our second tidbit of how to increase earnings during an economic recession. And if you go to the surah, you'll find that when Nuh alayhi salam is calling his people and calling them to Islam and calling them to worship Allah Azza wa Jal, he says, قُلْتُ اسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ غَفَّارًا. He said, I said to them that seek forgiveness from your Lord. And he is kana ghaffara, that he is indeed ghaffar. And ghaffar, with the shadda on the fa, means that he's someone that perpetually forgives. Allah Azza wa Jalla is someone that perpetually forgives. Now, it doesn't stop there, because Nuh alayhi salam continues and says that he will send yursil as-samaa alaykum midrara, and he will send from the skies rain. And of course, living in Texas, we're going through a drought, and so rain would just be great. But it doesn't stop there. وَيُمْدِدُكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ, and he will increase your wealth. And so if we're looking, and so one of the other ways in which wealth is increased is through seeking forgiveness. And we said, so just to summarize, we said one of the first ways we talked about was giving, and specifically giving to the students of knowledge and to the du'at, and to help the da'wah and help the movement forward. The second way is by seeking forgiveness, repenting unto Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, I wanted to briefly, just to remind myself and remind you about what is the proper technique, or how do we properly seek forgiveness. And there's a few points related to that. Number one is that when we seek forgiveness from Allah Azza wa Jal, we should do it with sincerity. Even though the result of seeking forgiveness is there's an increase in wealth, but that shouldn't be the reason we're seeking forgiveness. Rather, we should have a pure intention for Allah Azza wa Jal. As we know that the Prophet ﷺ told us, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, the actions are by intention. So the intention is the first thing. We intend that we do this action solely for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. The second thing is that whatever sin that we're repenting from, be that an internal sin, a state, whatever it may be, or an external sin, some sort of action that we're involved in, we need to stop. Stop doing the sin right away, to the best of our ability. I mean, obviously, we're human beings, but to the best of our ability, we stop immediately whatever that sin is. And, the point is that related to the first point, if we were sincere in our repentance, then we would naturally want to stop doing what we're doing. Because if we just repented and continued, how sincere would our repentance really be? So the second point when it comes to repentance is to stop doing the sin. The third point is that we make an intention never to return back to that sin that we're repenting from. And this is very important, because when it comes to doing a sin, we don't want to continuously be going back and going back to a sin. We want to now make a firm intention to never to return to the sin again. The fourth point is that we should feel a sense of guilt. We should be remorseful. It should be something that we're truly guilty about. And finally, is that we actually seek forgiveness from Allah, be that verbally or be it by doing good deeds. So verbally, obviously, one of the ways that people generally know about is saying astaghfirullah. But aside from that, even just, in your salah, in your prayer, when you're in sajda, sincerely seeking forgiveness from Allah with the tongue. But also, in addition to that, is increasing in doing good deeds. Because we know that good deeds wipe out evil deeds. And so if that's the case, it's imperative that not only do we follow all of these steps in seeking repentance, but we increase in doing good deeds. And I can't stress that more with the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah coming. I mean, this is the time really that Allah Azza wa Jal loves that you do more good deeds. So if you can fast, it's a great time to fast. With the winter months coming, it's easier to fast. If you can get up in the last third of the night to pray, if you can, help out someone, whatever it may be. Now let me conclude by one other thing related to forgiveness, and that is that if you're true and you're serious about seeking repentance and wanting Allah's forgiveness, then make sure that you are of the same nature. Meaning, make sure that you forgive other people, because that is something that will cause Allah to forgive you. You remember when the slander happened with Aisha radiallahu anha? It was terrible. And who was the father of Aisha radiallahu anha? It was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anha. And if you remember, there was a relative of Abu Bakr. And this relative was one of the people who was spreading the rumors about Aisha radiallahu anha. Now, immediately, once this came to light, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, naturally, as you and I would do, he withheld the funding. He used to fund this person, he used to help this person. This person was poor. But once he found out that he was spreading rumors and was aiding these rumors, he withheld the funding. And when he did that, ayat were revealed about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And Allah Azza wa Jal, in talking about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and talking about this incident, basically told Abu Bakr, or revealed to the Prophet ﷺ that Allah tuhibbuna an yaghfir Allahu lakum wallahu ghafurur rahim. Do you not want that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would forgive you, and Allah's ghafurur rahim? And these ayat are coming down upon Abu Bakr, who the Prophet ﷺ said that if the iman of Abu Bakr was put on one side of the scale and the iman of the entire ummah was put on the other side of the scale, the iman of Abu Bakr would outweigh the iman of the entire ummah. It is to him that these ayat are being revealed. And Allah Azza wa Jalla is asking, do you not love that Allah would forgive you? And of course, upon hearing these ayat, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anh, with his head in his hands, tears flowing down from his eyes, he said, Bala, uhibbu an yaghfir Allahu li. Of course I want